دیوانہ
اس لیے پڑھتا ہوں میں ناد علی،
اس لیے پڑھتا ہوں میں ناد علی،
یہ ترانہ میرے یہ ترانہ میرے حضور کا ہے،
دل دیوانہ
عرش اعظم سے اور بھی آگے،
عرش اعظم سے اور بھی آگے،
آنا جانا میرے حضور کا ہے،
دل دیوانہ
ماضی و حال اور مستقبل،
ماضی و حال اور مستقبل،
ہر زمانہ میرے حضور کا ہے، دینے کا وعدہ رب نے کیا،
رزق دینے کا وعدہ رب نے کیا،
دانا دانا میرے
حضور کا ہے،
دل دیوانہ رزق دینے کا وعدہ رب نے کیا،
دینے کا وعدہ رب نے کیا،
دانا دانا میرے حضور کا ہے، دل دیوانہ روز میں ہے.
Can everybody hear me? I hope so. Okay, it seems like it. Okay, so hello, my name is Hadi. I am 23 years old. I was born in North York General in Toronto. I was raised most of my life in America, starting from Wallington, New Jersey to Florida, and within and during that time, I was first diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 2.5. And when I was born, actually, I actually had I was put into NICU, which also stands for newly NICU, so newly intensive care unit, due to the fact that I had an accelerated heart rate. During the time, it was just the beginning of stages, but then afterwards it started to get worse and worse. And 2000, and when I was in Florida, actually, I started having multiple seizures throughout the day, to the point where there was a point in time where I actually ran down the stairs into my mom's arm, going into a seizure. And then a little bit before 2000, or maybe the beginning of 2012, we were offered the opportunity to go and maybe try neurosurgery. And it was a tough decision at that time, but at that current point in time, that was the only decision that we had. Before surgery, we did the normal neurological testing, vision testing, or neuropsych evaluations, the normal, the works, as they call it. And after during the operation, actually, they caught me going to SVT, started cardiac, or whatever, however you pronounce it. It stands SVT is the short form. And then when I got discharged from the hospital, they put me on digoxin, and it was working fine until the point in time where it was very, like, I wasn't having much heart episodes, so I stopped it. But then it started flaring up again. But one thing that I did lose from the operation was I lost about 25% of my eyesight on both eyes in 2012. And I had to get used to it, which I did. That's why I don't hit my head as I used to. And then I started school back into Toronto after I moved from Florida, which was also done after surgery. But it was very different. The school system was very different compared to the States. Versus when I was in the States, I was mostly full stream student, and next thing I know, I'm coming into a school where it's not like, I'm not even full streamed, and I'm also in locally developed classrooms. So it really upsetted me, and then it even came into the point where, like, one school where the US, where you use the elevator, you get punished, versus if you don't use the elevator, you'll get punished. It's the dynamics of the school system are very different. In the States, the educational assistant will come and check on you here and there randomly, versus in Canada, you have to have an educational assistant. It was very different, unique, annoying at times too. And life went on. I couldn't do much, but that's how it was. Then things changed as time went on. I eventually went into college, which I didn't finish. I actually ended up dropping out due to the fact that my seizures started to flare up again, and we started being very concerned. So doctor put back on the table, surgery. We'll have to consider surgery, and that was the doctor here in Toronto. And then one day we considered going to New York. And in New York, they said that they want to do an SEG, which basically is putting sticks into the head, directly into the head, into the brain to see pinpoint exactly where the seizures are coming from. And while doing so, they did puncture my cyst. So at that time it was a good, because it helped. But at the same time, while in the hospital, I also lost my hearing. For short time hearing, I lost, and it kept on coming in and out. So I was worried. But as I grew older, things changed, things happened. Just like in 2012 when I did my first surgery, I was scared, but I think my mom was more scared and more worried than I was. I was worried about the silliest things, like if I won't be able to remember my passwords, all the silly things. And my mom kept on looking at videos of other patients that did neurosurgery, and she started to freak out. But then after I came out of the surgery and everything, I was like, oh, this is nothing. What was I thinking? I could remember my passwords and stuff like that, but I couldn't communicate to another person. So example, milk. I couldn't say the word milk. I had to use other words that I could pronounce. For example, instead of milk, I would say drink or liquid, and then I would say whatever in a container or bottle or whatever, just for my mom to help me get that item. And it was hard, and it still is hard, but you get used to it. And since then I've been fine. I've been like, I'm actually been living by myself for, I believe, now 4 years, since September of 2016. Yeah, since 2016. But it does get harder and harder, because as you get older, there are things like, if I, let's say, was to get married, I have to also be careful, because having my type of seizures can cause, what do you call it, post-traumatic stress disorder to my spouse. I've noticed that my family, the only person that really knows my seizures, and I don't think even my family knows my seizure situation that well, because, for example, I had a seizure. I had two seizures, or two scenarios where I fell off the bed twice, and I said to my family, "Okay, no, this is enough." I went ahead and I disassembled the bed, and I said, "You know what? I'm just from this point onwards, I'm going to just what do you call it? Sleep on the floor with just the mattress on the floor. That's it." And later on, I came back home from school, because I was studying a little. I had my school was a little distance, so I came back home one day, and next thing I know, bed is back assembled, and I just literally, because I didn't have time to disassemble it again, I just pulled the mattress off of the bed and said, forget it, I'm not wasting my time on it. Um, and it's hard, but you know like my grandparents have only seen me have a seizure twice. My aunt has only seen me have a seizure once, and the funny thing is, she freaked out and she was ready to run away. She said, "Okay, I'm out of here." But it's difficult. It's difficult because you know for people to understand my situation, it's unique. And like they say, like the doctors have this saying, two same cases. There's no two same cases or two problems. Every case is unique and in its own unique way. I am one of those lucky ones because my I get, like, what do you call, I know when I'm going into an epileptic seizure, versus I hear the majority don't. Um, but at the same time, I have to be careful because mine are one of those type of seizures um, that can cause PTSD or PTSD in the long run. I am also lucky in a way because you know it's how do I say it? I'm very independent. I'm very independent. I have had a case where I went to New York for a follow up, and I landed like usual. Normal person. You get to the airport. You take your flight. You go land to your destination, and I ended up actually having a SVT case, and I ended up having to call the ambulance. I had to be ended up transferred to the hospital, so on and so forth. They had to give me adenosine. For those who don't know what adenosine is something that basically reboots your heart in English terms, or restarts your heart. I've heard for most normal people, it is very painful. I guess I was one of the lucky ones that it wasn't painful for me. Um, but it's difficult. Even when I was living in Florida, when my parents, like, I knew before my parents even so-called announced it, that I knew that they were going to get into a divorce. It was just so-called a matter of time. Um, and later on, not at that current point in time, but later on, it did become into a custody issue, and it affected not only me but also my siblings. And it's not just me. I know other cases where parents get into a divorce and then it becomes a custody issue for them. Um, but I don't know what I don't think it hit me hard until uh, it started to become a so-called more of a fight versus just a simple the kids are staying with me and stuff like that. Um, uh, what else is there to say? I'm lucky to be one of the lucky ones who are independent, who move around town left, right, and center. Who can um, you know do almost anything I need to do. I don't need, like, my mom's help as much, but it's hard. And then in 2012, when I actually did move into Toronto, um, I did my first neuropsych evaluation, which I wasn't pusant to it, or fond to it, because I just did one when I came from Florida, when before I left Florida. Um, And what happened was that's when they first diagnosed me with Asperger's. Now, um, when I was 2.5, and when I did an evaluation in 2.5, it said this on the papers. It said symptoms of autism or Asperger's, but it didn't stamp it as Asperger's. It just said symptoms. Um, so yeah, okay, autism, Asperger's, whatever the case may be, it it was stamped. It was stamped. Fine, let's go on with life. Uh, but then later on, when I went to New York for my first neuropsych evaluation done there, they said no, you don't have Asperger's. You have frontal lobe syndrome. And frontal lobe syndrome has similar symptoms, as you might want to call it, compared to Asperger's in what are in my case. So it was very interesting, at the same time very astounding, because they saw me as who I am when I went to New York, versus I've noticed Canada just knows how to. It felt like Canada was just pulling me down, um, and it didn't feel right. Um, even when I was going through the school system, all that stuff, like they said, oh, you can't go have this class because um, it's like it's what do you call it? Um, it's woodwork, and woodwork has sharp objects, and if you have a seizure while the machine is running, then we might have a bigger issue than anything. One issue after the other. The same thing happened in the we had a automotive class, and they were ready to kick me out of that because they were saying that I'm dealing with heavy equipment. And luckily, I was lucky with that one. I didn't have to deal with. I didn't have to fight it as much. The only deal was I couldn't do welding, which I wasn't planning to do any welding anyways. So it came in handy in that way, in that sense. Um, but having that so-called EA everywhere I go was really annoying, because I it's like it's if I am a naughty boy who was misbehaving everywhere I went, um, and it was hard. And then 2017, after they did the neuropsych and everything, they noticed that he doesn't that this device will help me, but they have no guarantee. So we went ahead with the procedure. We installed it, um, and it was it it was the first year or two after the installation. It was difficult because I had to come back every 3 to 4 months just for the adjustment of the device, um, and it's hard. It's hard because getting on a plane, going there, staying a few nights, coming back. There were times where I just did a 1 day trip where I went with a family member or a friend to New York. So what I would basically do is I'll take the first flight out in the morning, and then I'll take the last flight out at night, because Air Canada was running hourly, or every other hour roughly. So it wasn't a problem for me. The last flight was at like 9 o'clock at night, and the first flight was at 6 or something in the morning. So it wasn't much so difficult for me. But the problem that I've noticed with my family, and not just, I don't think it's just my family. I think it's more generalized than just that. Is um, the family sometimes needs to take uh, what their child says more seriously than others. Um, I had a case where I kept on telling my family that my stomach is bothering me, my stomach is bothering me. They didn't listen until it was actually caught on the EKG. Um, and then they started believing me because because then the doctors started listening. Um, Even doctors keep on saying that I need to stay like I need to have fluids. So what I do is I keep cases of Powerade or Gatorade or whatever you want to call it with me at home all the time because it helps me from uh, what do you call it going into or like going into a full blown seizure. I also got a diabetic kit just to check my sugar levels. I also have I also keep. I actually do have scrubs because the reason why I keep scrubs on me or wear scrubs most of the time is because when I have a seizure, I have everything handy for me. Um, like I have my Ativan, which I keep on my pockets. I actually keep two cases of Ativan, two doses of Ativan with me at all times, or most of the time. One is in my keys, so like I just have simple pill bottles here that I keep with me. Okay, one is just over-the-counter Tylenol, one is daily medication, and one is just particularly just Ativan, because Ativan has a tendency of turning into powder. So for it not to turn into powder, I just keep one, and then I have one on the side of my pants in my side pocket. Um, so that also helps in that case. I have a Samsung phone that has a built-in program called SOS. So once I go into a seizure, I just trigger the emergency SOS and it notifies whoever I set to notify. So that also comes in handy. Um, and there's all that there is a lot of technology out there that helps with safety for kids. I know York Region Police has something out there too, I believe, for people with like severe autism who can't communicate, or like who have not Asperger's, but I believe it's called not arthritis. What's the word? They have it's something about when they can't remember anymore. I can't get the name off of my head for some reason. So they have the police department has stuff like that, so it's easier to find them in case they get lost. Um, so it comes in handy. Um, and for me, when it comes to even the religious perspective, because my speech has um, like I've lost a lot of my speech. I can't speak fluently um, in anything. I just say, at the end of the day, it's what your intention is with God or whoever, with mom or whoever it may be. As long as it's a pure intention, that's all that matters. Okay, it doesn't matter about, like, you might be saying it in a mean way, but make sure you try to explain it to somebody so that then they understand it, because sometimes when speaking to somebody they might receive it or take it as offense or rude or disrespectful or something like that. And I've noticed that with me myself especially. So make sure you use, whatever you're trying to say to somebody, you use the right terminology and stuff like that, because someone like me, I have a tendency of just being up straight and blunt with people, even though I don't mean to. Versus uh, where was I now? Versus, you know, other people might take it as an offense. So just be careful with that. Um, when I was young, I used to read like Arabic very fluently, um, and as I got older, and when I went for my first surgery, I lost it all. When I was younger, before my first 2012 surgery, I would be able to spell big words like elevator, administrator, so on and so forth. And today, since then, I cannot um, spell it. I actually use my tools like Google Voice or whatever platform you are, to spell the words for me. You know, but the downside about that is when you're with around surrounding people, um, they you have to be careful because you don't want to make noise, especially like if you're at a doing a program and you like the host or the guest speaker is speaking. It's better to try to spell and use autocorrect or something like that. So it is hard, um, being a kid um, with so many challenges. Today I am happily to say that I am living alone. I can travel almost anywhere, but I've had seizures with me. I'm lucky that my seizures are not as bad compared to before 2012. But right now my seizures are about once to two a month, give or take. But recently, a few months ago, I lost my sister due to a car accident, and that's when my seizures actually flared up again. And it was concerning, but what do you call it? It's that's how life is, like they don't take life for, to gra- to gra- don't take life as if it's your whole entire life, because one day we all have are to go. uh, so I've gotten a question here. Question is, who are the people in your life who have been the most supportive? Okay. The people that have been most supportive is um, like mostly like my friends who I can trust to the bottom of my heart, who are like there when my sister passed, who were there, who I can like always count on. Yeah, now I understand you can't like they can't always be available because sometimes they're at work or one another, whatever the case may be. But they're there when I need it, even if it's just a text message or a phone call. They're there. Um, and then the other question is, what did they do that you found helpful? Yeah, so that answers part one of it. Um, yeah, so it's like when you're a kid, you'll always fight with your siblings and stuff like that. But when you get older, it's more difficult. I still remember my last birthday party I had with her. So it is difficult, but life goes on and you move forward. Don't think about the past, because if you keep on thinking about the past, then it's then you'll not move forward. Here's another question: what advice would you give neurotypical or dealing with those individuals on the autism spectrum? I'm not sure exactly whether you're talking about the individuals who are diagnosed with autism, or like you're talking about parents and stuff like that. But people with autism also need to have to be mindful that they're more prone to be bullied, which I've noticed, um, and they sometimes have to what do you call it? What do you call it? They have to prove themselves more harder than an average person. So it depends. Like I know a family of four, a mom, dad, and two kids who are both on the autism spectrum. One is verbal; he can talk, but one is he uses a talker. So like if he's not feeling well, he'll use the talker to say I'm in pain, or if he's in if he wants candy, he'll use the talker. Um, but there are also times where he'll just go into the cabinet to get whatever he wants. So it's there's that, and then there's one that he's very verbal, but it's also, I believe, known as when he I've heard it's known as silent autism, which is very hard to recognize. Um, but like if he gets upset or something like that, he'll just like go. He won't use his words to say what he's feeling. He'll just go, and sometimes they will go to someone higher like mom or dad, or they'll just go somewhere where they can just pout it out or cry it out. It like would be the right word for that. um, so it depends from case to case how high in the spectrum you are or how low on the spectrum you are. um, so it depends on that too. I guess no more questions. I can't see any more questions, so I'll move on with my thing. Um, so it it's difficult for what the see the challenges I face is that I in one country I have I have autism, versus another side of the border I'm considered as frontal lobe syndrome. One thing that's familiar is on both sides is um, what do you call it? The SVT has been there. The epilepsy has always been there. Now I'm partially blind, so it does make it a lot more difficult. Um, Finding a spouse can be also sometimes a little bit more challenging because they might just talk, but not realize how challenging your case may be. Um, so, like for me, I live alone. I completely live alone. I do everything myself. I clean my house. Like I can wash my dishes. I'm very independent. The only thing I don't do is cook. It's it. There's several reasons why I don't cook. One of the main reasons is um, it's a safety hazard for me. Um, because of the epilepsy, so that's one. And number two, because I'm living alone, in case something goes bad, like let's say I go into a seizure while cooking, then it can become a very dangerous and sticky situation for me. um, so it's not as safe or as easy as what people might think when it comes to that kind of um, uh, scenarios. But it's that's how life is. That's how life is. And with that note, I think I'm gonna end it unless anybody has any more questions before I close. Um, no, it doesn't look like it. So, thank you all for joining. And with that, well, I'll leave the comments below open so you can comment, and then accordingly I'll decide whether to have a second session or not. But if not, then we'll probably see. But I have a funny feeling we will be having another session. The date will be eventually posted on this YouTube link. Thank you, all of you, and have a good evening. Bye. God Hafiz.